In the past, when a consumer applied for a mortgage, the lender was required to give the consumer 2 federally mandated disclosure forms. In addition, the lender was required to give a second set of disclosure forms to a consumer before the consummation of a loan. The primary pieces of legislation that required these disclosures are the Truth in Lending Act, or TILA, which was enacted in 1968, and the Real Estate Settlement Procedures Act, or RESPA, which was enacted in 1974. Unfortunately, all these disclosures had overlapping, inconsistent language, and multiple forms that confused consumers and were inconvenient for lenders. This system also involved a significant amount of paperwork, and the forms established by each law weren't always compatible. The Dodd-Frank Wall Street Reform and Consumer Protection Act of 2010, or simply the Dodd-Frank Act, specifically addressed this by requiring the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau to create rules that would integrate the disclosures required by TILA and RESPA. The result was integrated mortgage disclosures under the Real Estate Settlement Procedures Act and the Truth in Lending Act, which became mandatory on October 3, 2015. Now it's commonly known as Tila-Respa rule. Integrated mortgage disclosures were a major change in the way mortgage-related disclosures are handled. For over 40 years, the disclosure of information about mortgages was done in the same way. But with the implementation of Tila-Respa, everything changed. And even though the implementation of new standards and new forms is intended to streamline the mortgage disclosure process, it's taken some getting used to. The Tila-Respa rule combines the information provided in the disclosure forms to create simpler forms that the lender can provide to the consumer. One of the main things the rule did was reduce the number of mortgage disclosure forms down to 2. The loan estimate form is a fusion of the initial TILA disclosure and the good faith estimate, and is given out at 2 different times. The first time a consumer receives a loan estimate is shortly after the lender takes their loan application. The second time they receive it is at the latest a week before the funding of the loan. The closing disclosure form combines elements of the HUD-1 and the final TILA disclosure that is given to the consumer shortly before the closing of the loan. While the Tila-Respa rule applies to mortgages, it doesn't apply to all mortgages. Home equity lines of credit, reverse mortgages, and mortgages secured by a mobile home or a dwelling that's not actually attached to the ground are not covered under the rule. The TILA portion of the rule is intended to protect consumers against inaccurate and unfair credit billing and credit card practices by requiring lenders to provide consumers with loan cost information. This allows consumers to shop around for certain types of loans. It also provides consumers with the right of rescission, which means they have 3 days to consider their decision and back out of the loan process without losing their money. This further protects consumers against lenders who attempt high-pressure sales tactics during the process. RESPA works together with TILA and protects consumers from abusive lending practices by requiring lenders to provide consumers with information on settlement services, consumer protection laws, and real estate transactions before they borrow the money. This allows them to make a more accurate estimation of fees and expenses. RESPA also eliminates the practice of kickbacks or referral commissions that might inflate the cost of a loan at the last minute. And finally, RESPA governs the use of escrow accounts and prohibits lenders from demanding large amounts of money held in escrow before they approve a loan.